So when you think about product innovation, you think about, some like amazing, special, guy's got like a beard and a turtleneck and he's like staring out into the future. And he's like, pens will float. Hi, thanks for having me at TEDxMalmö. Excited to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about product innovation and inside companies, especially digital product innovation, where it can get stuck, and some of the challenges you have at doing innovative stuff. So let's just imagine for ourselves what does like a product innovator look like, especially these you see these sort of special people and they can see the future, like wherever they are and whatever they can see, you can't see it. It's magical and it's out there in the distance and everyone's against them and they have to fight against everything. And I think that's how we imagine the product innovator, this sort of solo, sort of strong maverick, ready to break boundaries and strive through everything. And when I started working with product innovation myself, over 10 years ago, that's how I thought of myself. I wanted to sort of picture how things would be. And, when people said they didn't believe in it or they didn't think it was going to happen, and, I'd fight against it. And, I'd try to sort of tense up and prove that I was right. Now, after over 10 years of working with this, I think the opposite of that. I try to be more connected. I try to understand why people disagree with things. And I try to find perspectives that are different from the ones that I have. And I try to connect people a lot more. Rather than trying to sort of drive my own way forward, I try to help share context with peers, with my teams, with other people that are working in other industries. And that's what I think the key work in product innovation is really connecting people and sharing context. My good colleague Marcus likes to say that good decision making comes from a deeper understanding of the context and of the opportunity. And I agree with him. So I'd like to tell you a couple stories of what I've been through and some of the work that I've done, and share some tools on how to connect people and hopefully set up for a better chance for your product innovation. In 2013, I joined King, and Candy Crush was just starting to blow up. It was a really great time to be there. I was introduced as a maverick, and I had like a bow tie, and it literally said on the slide that introduced me to the leadership team that I was a maverick. And I was brought in to break new ground and started looking at how we could bring Candy Crush to Asia. And we were looking at the social networks that were there. It was a cool time. And the whole company was growing. There were more people coming into the company, and there were more people playing our games. And it was a really special time. But as we entered into 2014, you also needed to have some structure. And we didn't really have enough. So we started getting more processes and getting more structured and taking care of the core of our business. And our COO was named Stefan, and he's a proper leader, a lot of integrity. And when you put together your slides to explain what was going on in your business, you had to really know them, and you had to know your business well. Because when you handed in your 150 slide deck, Stefan in the meeting would look at you and say, "Slide 38, David. Chart on the left. Is that iOS or Android? And why do you think the trend is like that?" And if you didn't know, you were in trouble. So there was a lot of stability that came from these kind of questions and these processes. And it was good for King. But I was a maverick and a product innovator, so I didn't like any of it. And, I was constantly challenging. At one point I said, what are we doing? None of this stuff is going to work. And Stefan asked me, what should we be doing then, David? And I said, literally, anything would be better than this. So as we came into 2015, we started an experimentation group where we would do really dynamic, really take a lot of risk in a smart part of the business. And you see a lot of this in businesses. I mean, it's R&D sections, and you saw that in Xerox PARC, and let's take this little group and let them go in a completely new direction. And so we started doing that. And there's a special part with product innovation where, like I was saying before, you don't need to just you think that it just comes from this sort of visionary type that sees a direction forward, but it's often a network. And Xerox PARC is a good example of it also, but there's a group of people that are working together and bringing different perspectives and having a shared context and sort of challenging each other. And so that's what we set up. And it was really dynamic. We were taking a lot of risks and trying a lot of different things, and that was a lot of fun. But at some point, you have to figure out how to pay the bills, right? So we got our first breakthrough, and we're really excited about it. And we met with Stefan, and Stefan said, this is great work. Thanks. And his first question was, when are you going to do this again? So I said, Stefan, I don't know. This is crazy innovation stuff. It's completely unpredictable. We don't know when it's going to happen again. And I think it was an interesting moment when I think back about it, because Stefan, he had to give some certainty to the business. He needed some parts of this to be predictable. But I didn't want it to be predictable. I wanted to be a maverick and be dynamic. And so by not accepting any of that, I put the uncertainty on him. He had to handle the uncertainty. And I went back to doing my product innovation. So, me and the team, we're doing a lot of really new dynamic stuff. And we found another breakthrough 3 months later. And when I met with Stefan that time, I told him about it. And he said, that's good. So you'll be doing this once a quarter then. And I knew I was in trouble then. He needed something to be predictable. And he was structuring the business. And I knew that the process that we were running wasn't predictable. And I was stuck in the middle. So when you ask my team, hey, we need to be a little bit more predictable, guys. How do you think we should think about this? It was pretty easy. Team's got a simple answer for it. You want us to be predictable? Let's do small things that we know work. And then you're like, yeah, but that's not going to lead to any breakthroughs. Nope. No, it's not, David. And there you're kind of stuck. And it's a classic place to be stuck in. This isn't, both perspectives are actually really interesting perspectives. On the one side, you've got some sort of, like we talked about, this sort of dynamic product innovator person who says hey, everything I'm doing, it's uncertain and it's unpredictable and I need it this dynamic. What do you want me to do? And without that kind of perspective, without that kind of work, you're not going to get fresh ideas. So, company's probably going to stagnate. Your product's going to stagnate. On the other side, you got people that say, hey, we need there to be processes. We need this to be predictable operations, we have bills to pay and, we have goals to meet. And that's also important. You can't just throw that away either. So, if you just let one of these voices win, you end up in a really unbalanced kind of company, especially one that makes digital stuff. So there's a couple tools that I think are really important for figuring out how to balance this work. And a lot of it, I think, maybe one of the core things if you're working with product innovation, and one of the lessons that for me has been really hard personally to take on, is that if you try to get rid of uncertainty yourself, if I try to say, I'm going to be working on something dynamic, I can't be predictable. You take all the uncertainty of the operation, you put it on your leadership or on your stakeholders, and it becomes really hard for them to carry it. Or if you say, I demand that it's predictable, and you tell your team, you guys have to be predictable, you take all the uncertainty and you put it on them, and then they feel trapped. So really one of the strangest parts of working with product innovation is that you have to be prepared to carry the uncertainty yourself. And you need to have a couple tools that help you deal with your stakeholders and with your creative teams. I think that if you're working with product innovation and you have stakeholders, you should definitely take a look at buckets. So instead of just saying, here are all the 20 things that we're working on right now, you can try to group things together. And what happens then is you have, say for instance, in our case, you have things that are on player engagement. And then you have some things that you're working on that are on, say, social systems. And then you have some things that are working on first-time user experience. So what happens then is when you're trying to share with your stakeholders, here's the stuff that we're working on. If you show them all the details, they get stuck into the details, and their feedback isn't always what you were looking for. What you need to get out of them is, how should I prioritize my work? And is there something that you know about the system that I don't know? So you need to try to get some context from your stakeholders. So when you have buckets like that, they can actually help you with the weighting of the buckets. I can say that we want less work on first-time user experience because we really think that we're going to be struggling with the social aspects of our product. So can you focus on that? And that focus allows you guys to have a shared context, but it brings their priorities into your work. And I mean, one of my favorite conversations also from my time of learning how to use buckets, we showed these buckets to our stakeholders, and Stefan, he took a look at it and he said, I'd like you to put more work into the first-time user experience. And I said, okay, that sounds great. Would you like me to take away some from the player engagement stuff? He says, no, keep up. That's important work. Keep it up. And I said, okay, you want us to take away some work from the social stuff? He said, no, David, don't take away. That's important work as well. I said, okay, so you're giving me a whole new team. He said, no, David, you're not getting a whole new team. And I said, I'm not sure what to do then. And he said, yeah, you know what? Good prioritization. Keep up the work, David. Well done. So it was a way for him to see how we'd actually prioritize our work and be able to give feedback. So along with buckets, another really important tool, my second favorite tool really, is broad meetings and context sharing. You're trying to connect people, and like I said earlier, a lot of the uncertainty that you're going to be dealing with and not knowing if things are going to work out or not, you're going to have to carry. And one of the ways for you to help make sure that your innovation is working the way that you'd like it to is by making sure that you bring more and more context and more perspectives into the conversation. So what I'd recommend is having really broad meetings where a lot of the people working inside of the product innovation in your team can be there and talk about the things that they're working on and allow lots of other people from the organization to join in. So, we have people from legal joining in and listening in, people from other teams, and stakeholders can come in and listen in as well. It's important that those meetings, you can talk about whatever, you bring things up, bring up new perspectives and challenge things, and that it's not conflict-oriented or decision-oriented. Because when you start bringing up decisions, are we going to do it? Are we going to kill it? Are you going to let it work? Are you going to let us keep on this path? When those decisions show up in the meeting, people kind of close up and they get defensive and they start trying to control the conversation. Whereas if it's a broad meeting where people are just bringing up opinions and trying to hear other perspectives, you can have a pretty robust conversation. Innovation isn't easy, and especially in the digital world where it's all kind of mashed together. You don't have the operators on one side like in old Kodak, just doing the sales stuff, and then the lab people in some basement in Rochester. Everything's mixed together. And so you need to be dynamic and come up with new things that haven't been thought of before. And at the same time, you need to be predictable and structured. And so two of the tools that have really helped me get through some of that is using buckets and really putting your work into categories and being able to share it with stakeholders and other people in the organization to get good feedback on how to organize your work. And making sure that you got broad meetings that can seem a little expensive and maybe indulgent, but help other people bring new context and new perspectives to your team and to you. And I think more than anything, lose the idea of you being a maverick and lose the idea that you have to break new ground and you have to stand alone, because you don't have to stand alone. You need to deepen your understanding of what's going on in the world and what the opportunities are. And you're going to do that with other people. So talk to other people, listen to them, let them challenge you, and share your thoughts and your ideas with the people around you. And hopefully you can come up with some really great stuff together. Thank you.